Dave Sivcovich began his hockey journey all the way back in 1963, playing for Eddie Olson at the old Clayton rink in Shaw Park. But 1993 is when Sivcovich would begin his dedication to Webster Groves hockey, where he'd coach at all age levels, from learn to play to bantam. He'd serve on the Webster Hockey Board, in addition to a 4-year run as president of the organization. But it was as an on-ice official where he'd make his mark. He'd officiate numerous regional tournaments as well as 2 national championships, a longtime board member of the Missouri Ice Hockey Officials Association, where he served as president for 2 years. He'd also serve as the treasurer of Missouri hockey for 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dave Sivcovich. But stay there real quick, Dave. Before you come up, I would like you to know that you're not the first Dave Sivcovich to have a Hall of Fame career to dedicate their lives to the great game of St. Louis, our great game of hockey here in St. Louis. Your father, Dave Sr., also helped pave the way for helping taking St. Louis hockey to where we are today. And Dave, if it's okay with you, in addition to being inducted with this incredible group here in 2025, we'd like to let you know that you are being inducted alongside your late father, Dave Sivcovich Sr., who also this evening is being inducted into the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame. Come on up.
Well, that certainly changes what I planned on saying. I am honored to be here, and I am flattered to be considered in the same company as my fellow inductees. As long as I remember growing up in Maplewood, my dad kept a stick and puck in the garage. Back in the days when the lakes used to freeze in Forest Park, he would take my brother Rich and I over to the park, and we'd play hockey. And one day in '63, he took us to the old Winter Garden down on the Bolivar. And while we were skating around, we saw him talking to a man, and we skated over, and that's when we met Eddie Olson. Eddie asked us if we wanted to play hockey for real, and we said sure. And then we did what any 6- and 9-year-old brothers would do. We started fighting over our one hockey stick. We started playing that fall. There was about 25 kids. Actually, there's a picture on the table out there of the entire Clayton program in 1964. There were a similar number of kids over at Steinberg. And with 50-odd skaters, from mid-October until March, that was St. Louis amateur hockey. 40 years later, I was president at Webster. I had 500 skaters in the program. I was one of about 12 programs. And to have seen the growth as a player, coach, administrator has been amazing, especially as an administrator, knowing that the various factions here hadn't torn each other apart. There are some people I need to thank for all this. First, my wife, Judy, who since 1970 has at least tolerated my obsessions, be it hockey or Harleys or music or scuba diving or whoever I get myself into. And she's been my partner for all of that, although I think she'll readily admit that now that the activities involve warm Caribbean waters instead of cold Iowa hockey rinks is much better. If you've ever done any kind of administration of anything, you know you can't do it without a lot of help. And I was fortunate over the years of the various organizations to have a lot of help. And I'd like to thank, in particular, Tom Wolf, the hardest working man behind the scenes of hockey. Tom saved my butt many times at my HOA, many more times on the state board. Tom's world is black and white. It's not gray. He will give you the straight answer, whether you want to hear it or not. I also want to thank my former Falkland Islander teammates, Jack B. and Bob Hollenstein. Jack saved me a lot of times at Webster, kept me from telling some parent what I really thought of him. And Bob helped me a lot at my HOA from telling some of my fellow officials what I thought of their abilities. I also want to thank my longtime friend, old teammate, and dive buddy, Dave Garth, who Dave asked me to announce real quick that immediately following this program, Jack Bean will be delivering the second half of his acceptance speech from a couple years ago. So make sure you plan for that. Although I'm not sure what Dave has to talk about. The best thing about diving with Dave Garth is that while you're underwater, you don't have to listen to him tell another story about some playoff game that happened 30 years ago that he probably lost to Chaminade. And as was mentioned, I also need to recognize my dad. It was his passion for hockey that caused him to keep a stick and puck in his garage and allowed him to recognize Eddie Olson that day at the Winter Garden long after Eddie's career was done. Being an old football official, Eddie had no problem talking Dad into learning a new rule book, and in '63, Dad became either the second or fourth A-House certified official in St. Louis. Dad also coached, winning a championship, which means he beat Steinberg, and he helped run the Clayton organization. In 1966, with Eddie Olson, Sel Kors, Mr. McDonough, Mr. Roche, he formed the Missouri Amateur Ice Hockey Association, the predecessor of the current state board. And as hockey started to grow, he worked with Bill McKenna and fellow Maple Woody and Jim Wentworth to help schedule officials. So obviously it was in the DNA. And last, and I think most importantly, I want to thank all of you, and probably your parents too. Because like many of you, your parents played, they coached, they officiated. They had a passion for the sport that they passed on to you, just as you have passed it on to the next generation. And that's how we grew from 50 kids at Steinberg and Clayton to over, 16,000 registrants last season. Certainly not because of anything I did. It was you. You guys shared the passion, you passed it down. And that's what makes hockey strong in St. Louis. That's what keeps it strong. And for that, I thank all of you.